So
almost there.
close.
Almost. You were so
So
close.
close.
Hello. Welcome to the Punch Up Pod with Leila and Pat. How is everybody? Pat, I missed you this last 2 weeks.
I mean, you better not get long COVID because I don't have enough time on my hands to do like 7 shows a week, which you'll probably want to do.
Let me tell you something. It's not feeling great, I gotta say. So I got COVID 2 weeks ago today, and I was like, it's just not that I think that for everybody, but for myself, I was like, it just feels like a cold. I can do the show tonight. We drank a ton. I wasn't at my total best, but I was like, oh, I'm okay. The second we were done, I took to my bed and basically didn't leave for about 10 days. I was not feeling well. My doctor would not prescribe Paxlovid, so we have the tools, but not for me or my husband or my kid. Dr. Howard, friend of the show, was lovely. I wrote to him, and he said he recommended metformin. Had to plead with my doctor to prescribe it. My husband went to go pick it up before he tested positive for COVID. We had a day lag. They wouldn't give it to him. Had to call the doctor, have her re-prescribe it. By that point, my son was feeling better, so he went to go pick it up. They didn't give me enough pills. Then I had to count it out. I mean, it's been such a process, and I still don't feel great. I started testing negative 4 or 5 days ago, but I don't feel great. This isn't how I normally sound or feel.
You're normally much smarter. I can attest to that.
I know. And funnier, so much funnier.
You've lost your humor and your sense of smell.
Anyway, but I'm back. Happy to be back. Happy to be here with everybody. Tell me, yes, yeah.
Well, I just want to say, without doing the show, it was a rough 2 weeks. I was complaining more than usual. I posted a lot of cat pics, which ironed some people on the left. They're like, I don't know how to process a guy in politics posting cat pics.
That's crazy. You were doing your own timeline cleanse.
Yeah, what are you gonna do? You can't make everybody happy, which brings us to all the talk lately about it's ableist if you're saying you recovered from COVID. It's ableist if you call it brain damage because you're minimizing all the others' brain damage. And there's some insane stuff. And I just said insane, which I know that is a trigger word.
Clinically, can you actually say that people are insane? Yeah, I know. It's really hard. Obviously there's some people who just like chaos and they like to be jerks. I think there are a lot of people who are in a ton of pain and feel unheard and upset. But I don't know what, man, it's really rough.
It's excessive. I mean, they chased Laura Lee off.
I know.
I'm probably pronouncing her name wrong. Sorry about that. But she's one of the people that posts and researches and gathers things in databases for COVID. And these are like people that they're not COVID denialists or anything, but they're minimizing people who get COVID because they're disabled somehow.
Right.
What? How does that logic work? That's okay?
Yeah. I mean, it's really rough because you don't want to make anybody feel bad for their condition. And now I'm reduced to improper grammar because I say they instead of he or she, because I don't want to offend anybody. It's so many levels, but I do know it's supposed to be he, just so you know. Still got that. But anyway, I don't know. I feel like we all have to give each other just a little bit of grace,
Especially when you're allies and the issue you're talking about is something we should all agree with. Just cut a little slack. And then, and she's getting death threat emails. I mean, she's not just quitting for nothing.
Disgusting. Yeah. And
so
I didn't see, go ahead.
Well, I didn't talk to you about this, but I said she can come on the show if she wants. And I will at least, she's putting together a website. She's almost done with it to gather all her research and be a source for COVID info. So we're going to make sure and pimp that for her.
I would love that. She's fantastic. She's put so many great resources together And yeah, I mean, I missed the first tweet that people said had language that they wanted her to apologize for. So I have no idea, but I also feel like, again, it'd be really nice if people could just take a step back and know that in general, she is an ally. I I got so many like.
Sorry, I derailed us here.
No, it's fine.
I
mean,
what
it's
I do.
important. Yeah. And she's also sent a lot of people our way, which I'm so grateful for. Like, she truly doesn't want people to be harmed by this virus that our government and every government now in the Western world, especially, is letting rip. So that feels like a massive shame and kind of losing the plot for the people who are attacking her. But, you know.
Yes. And I just want to say that, like, there are definitely real people hurt by whatever they perceive as the injustice here.
Right.
But there are also definitely people that are funded by the right to create division.
100%.
And
Yeah.
when you have a targeted attack on someone like her with death threats, you're trying to shut up a big voice on COVID. I'm very suspicious of.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm worried that all these people are real, is what I'm saying.
Especially seeing like the people who came after me, both when when Xander first got COVID, and I wrote about it, and then talking about metformin for myself and how the pharmacist denied my husband. Like, the people who just had to have the worst takes and try to make you feel bad when you're already feeling bad is fascinating to watch that play out. Hey, Zaina, working tonight, but dropped in to get thank you. I know sometimes it happens too fast. And, so this is our 100th episode. 100th episode.
100 years of doing the show. 100 years.
100 years, it feels like. And we had wanted to put together all these different things, and instead we're like working to the last minute to get all of our graphics, and we had some technical stuff. But when we're putting it together, I have to wear my readers to see, and usually I take them off like an hour before so I can adjust. And like, seriously, at 3 minutes until 5, I was still scrambling. So I'm still not seeing great, which is going to make this just an interesting experiment tonight.
Well, and I'm on my laptop in front of my main computer because both my computers wouldn't work today. So that's par for the course for
tech fail.
Socialist websites.
Right. Yeah, don't look at day over 90. I feel like I am about 90 right now, but I'm gonna drink and laugh through it. We thought it'd be sort of fun just to show a little clip of our very first episode, so you can see how far along we've come. So
which I haven't even seen. Let's see.
Oh.
That seems like us.
Wait.
Hey, Pat, I just.
Not yet.
No. Okay. What's happening?
I have to consent to being recorded here.
Oh shit. Okay. Is that true?
Yeah, it says this meeting is being recorded. By continuing in the meeting, you are consenting to be recorded.
Oh, they've taken all the magic out of it.
So I don't know if this is going to be on air, but I consent. Please record me.
I gotta tell you,
please turn it off once I'm off camera.
I felt your consent. I felt like your body language was very clear to me. And this is, by the way, this is what I brought to the baseball field because I wasn't sure how much wine I'd have to drink before. So it's in my.
And a good choice of color. That's a safe color for wine.
It hides it. Unidos con Bernie. It's from when I was doing I don't know if you can see the.
It's very static. Like, our background that we had to work so hard for, and I looked like I was visited by a ghost. So funny.
Door-to-door canvassing. And I have a line here, so I can measure my wine. And cheers.
Cheers as well. We didn't say hi yet, but I guess this is more important.
Yeah.
This is too bright. You can't even read that, can you?
Yeah, no, you got to tell me what it says.
So tonight's sponsor, unofficially, but if they'd like.
All right, so that was just a glimpse from where we started. I like our background a lot more now.
Yeah, back when we were shit libs. No, we weren't. Officially, but,
No.
you know, looking back, like I don't think we've changed a lick politically because we started the show post Bernie, post believing in the squad, post thinking anyone out there gave a shit about us, and then we progressed it during the pandemic, and everybody started pretending the pandemic didn't exist, which we didn't do. Weird that so many did, though.
Yeah, we'll get into that with our conspiracy segment. Well, what do you think? Should we hash it out? Should we get to all of our topics? We have to go for 100 minutes today. 100th episode, 100 minutes. Easy.
Barring, you know, if COVID is bringing you down, I'll do the show myself. Which
I'll bow out and just let you keep
nightmare.
All right. And, you know, we always forget, but please make sure to like and subscribe and smash that notification bell. There, I got the business out of the way. All right. Business. So what do we got? This is where I need my readers again. We have got Novid Schmovid. This is fine. I don't think we have this is fine topic, but whatever.
Yeah,
Biden Maganomics. What does it say? Election dejection. Worst of the week and conspiracy land. We also have several. We are heavy on timeline cleanses today, and only 4 shots, but I have a feeling we'll just keep those on the wheel. Let's hash it.
We'll roll with it. Let's do it.
Yeah, baby.
Of course. Excellent. I think that's excellent.
I think that's a timeline cleanse since we don't have anything.
Well, okay. I was going to say, because it's sort of, this is fine, but sort of worst of the week, but we didn't have them for either, which is, and we can still do it, but Vinay Prasad saying, if your child is sick, this is a doctor.
Oh my God.
Do not test him. Send him to school. Don't tell anybody that he's positive or she's positive for COVID. Decline any further COVID vaccination. This is a doctor. So that's the state of things.
Back when I did parody, I could have put this out as a parody for sure. And people would be like, oh, that's ridiculous.
Totally over the top. Nobody would believe that
this doctor. Is a fucking doctor that the people who minimize COVID cite.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
If your child is sick, do not test that child for COVID.
Imagine.
Can you believe that? Like that is unbelievable. And send them to school. Just send them. Go spread your COVID.
Yeah.
Don't tell your boss. Don't tell your school.
It's such a sad, like the horseshoe theory kind of deal, because he was like a Bernie person on the left, and I think it partially stems from distrust of big pharma, but it also clearly has a lot to do with his funding, which we know because of Walker Bragman and other journalists. Like, he is funded by the Brownstone Institute and the Koch brothers and all of those disgusting Great Barrington Declaration people, which is what everybody does now, both the left and the right, or liberals and the right, whatever. Anyway, that's
and we'll get into the billionaires donating to the left.
The left. Yeah,
the left is getting money from a libertarian billionaire. He died last year, but they all got money from it. So it makes you wonder, like, were these people really anti-vax? Are they really COVID minimizers? Or did they just take some money and they also want access to a certain somebody's show that brings them in a lot of revenue?
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I mean, it's really hard to know, but we'll get to the conspiracy stuff. So do you want to, let's spin it. Oh, whoa.
The baby wheel.
The baby wheel.
It's adorable. Here we go.
Yeah, baby.
All right. It's funny, 2 weeks off and so little has changed. It's only gotten worse. These are the numbers right now. Who would you want to see from our friend Case Study QB? Who would you want to see run instead of Biden? 83%
Just
say
someone
just
besides
someone
Biden.
like that person, whoever that is, gets 83%.
I mean, they didn't. If they had "we don't give a shit" as an option when they asked this question, it
like
would have been the
100.
top answer.
Yeah.
100%.
It is interesting to see that Kennedy, RFK Jr. has gone down. Kamala's hanging out with Kennedy, Elizabeth Warren, and Marianne Williamson. And Bernie and Pete Buttigieg up there at 3%. So anything could happen. How does Biden fare against his Republican possible opposition? He loses or ties every single one. Loses to Trump, ties with DeSantis, loses to Nikki Haley.
That's fake news. He's beating Ramaswamy.
Sorry, by 1. Let's hope it's Ramaswamy, says the DNC, which
honestly,
is why they say,
he would lose to Ramaswamy. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Ramaswamy would beat him. Like probably more than some of these other ones. I mean, this is where polling is kind of bullshit, but
well, especially when it's all a general election, right? Like, because it doesn't really take into account what's happening in the swing states. But it is just fascinating, when they poll between the two people who will likely be the candidates, Biden and Trump. Biden's way too old, not mentally up for the job. I mean, he loses to Trump has a vision for the future, loses to Trump, is honest, which is hilarious because they're both pathological liars. He beats Trump by a bit. Cares about people like you. I don't know if you can see, but that Trump actually beats him. I mean, by a hair, but still, like, come on, has a vision for the future, has a strong record of accomplishments as president, and then is a likable person.
You know what this poll shows me? It shows me that, like, these are people not following policy closely. I mean, because they think he's an honest person. Like, if you're following politics closely, he's not an honest person. So that right there tells me most people polled are not following this stuff closely, and yet he's still losing to Trump on these issues. So he's not appealing to like the normie Dems anymore.
Yeah. I mean, and how about this? This is even like, who do you think would do a better job responding to a national crisis, Joe Biden or Donald Trump? I mean, that is the only reason that he beat Trump in 2020 was because of COVID. That's the crisis. And he's losing on that.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously, if your goal is to stop fascism, forcing people to vote for the 81-year-old who won't hold primaries, who look at all those numbers, nobody fucking wants, and you're going to force, and your main issue that you're arguing is stop fascism, and you're picking the most unpopular option you could possibly find next to maybe Kamala. Sorry, K-Hive, I didn't mean to leave you out. Send me your death threats.
Chance. Yeah, exactly. And, I think it's been interesting. There was a couple things that are a week old, but what David Ignatius wrote, is he in the Times or the Washington Post, that Biden shouldn't run. And he's pretty much like a stenographer for the Biden White House. So for him to say that really shows that they are getting ready to pull the rug out, which of course, he can't even walk or mumble through. They cut his mic off in Vietnam. But the other thing is they finally now started talking about his habitual lying on CNN, which they've known about it. Yeah, they've known about it for 35 years, right? That ended his first 2 campaigns in the 80s. And now they're finally saying it on CNN.
And he has done, I don't know if it's similar things, but he's sort of told some stories that don't line up quite like this before.
Yeah, this president has a pattern at this point of either inventing or embellishing stories about his own past, his biography. He did it 3 times in one speech last month alone. He claimed he had witnessed a bridge collapse in Pittsburgh when he actually showed up about 6 hours later. He claimed that his grandfather had died just days before he was born himself at the same hospital. In fact, his grandpa died more than a year before in a different state, not the same hospital. And he also repeated a favorite false story that I and others have debunked over and over again about a supposed conversation with an Amtrak train conductor he was friends with, who was actually deceased at the time the conversation would have had to take place. And that's not all. There are some more serious ones in my view. Previously in his presidency, he claimed at one point he'd been arrested during a civil rights protest when, in other versions of the story, he just said an officer had taken him home from a protest. He said he had visited the Pittsburgh synagogue where worshipers were killed in a 2018 mass shooting. In fact, he had actually spoken to the rabbi, but never went. And he's made a whole bunch of others too. He said at one point, Republicans like to bring this up, he said that he used to drive a tractor trailer, he used to drive an 18-wheeler. Never happened. The White House later clarified he used to drive a school bus at one point as a job briefly. School bus, of course, not an 18-wheeler. So whatever his intentions, whether it's foggy memory about stuff that's going on decades ago or deliberate embellishment, this is an unfortunate pattern that keeps coming up again and again with Joe Biden.
I mean, that's pretty amazing that they're going there now, because this has been known forever. And they pretended that he was going to, restore the soul of a nation and his empathy. I still think that probably his absolute worst personal lie was destroying the trucker's life who was in the fatal car crash with his wife and daughter, and saying that it was because he'd been drinking his lunch, implying that it was a drunk driving accident, which it was not.
And they knew.
And then,
it wasn't they discovered years later it wasn't a drunk. It was not a drunk driving accident. They knew it and put that out to the public and ruined their families' lives. Yeah.
And he was a sitting senator. I mean, he had a megaphone. People listened to him and believed him. And then knowing that there were no weapons of mass destruction and still galvanizing Democrats to back up George W. Bush to start a war based on a lie that killed 1 million Iraqis and disrupted the whole Middle East. Right. So I guess those would be the 2 lies.
I mean, it all goes to a lack of character, obviously, too. Yeah. I mean, he dropped out twice from running for president in shame, publicly shamed at the time. The media knew it. They didn't cover that in either of these elections. They covered a little bit early in the primaries
in 2019 when they thought he didn't have a chance.
Yeah, when he was going to be out, it was okay to admit some of that stuff. It was okay to admit he had allegations against him. And remember there were like 8 or 9 people came forward with stiffing hair moments and and
sexual misconduct and rape, obviously. He killed.
But then so now the question is, we're at the point where something's going to have to change soon. Either they're stuck with it and the media is going to shut up, or they're going to run with someone like Gavin Newsom. So when we're seeing more of this stuff right now, it sure feels like a cry from some of the Democratic donors to sink Biden.
It does. And I think the fact that, early on, Elizabeth Warren would not endorse or say anything really kind about Kamala Harris as his VP running mate. Now, just this past week, we had Pelosi also unable to commit. I think it was on Face Nation or something where we have a clip, but I don't know if we need to, whatever. But, she would not fully endorse Kamala. And she just kept saying, well, the president thinks that should be his VP. And, what that also shows us is, first of all, nobody's scared of Kamala Harris or her staff. And the donors don't want Kamala Harris. So, because
I thought you were going a third direction, which was it shows that Elizabeth Warren still wants to be VP and will say whatever the fuck she can. She will tell any lie in the long shot.
I am sure that is also the case, but she's got to know that hope has dwindled far away. She sold her soul for nothing. But for Pelosi not to be able to full-throatedly endorse Kamala and kind of tap dance around that, I think is both, illustrative of how the donors are feeling and a nod to the donors. Like, don't worry, we're not all going to get behind her if you all want to replace her. So that's interesting.
And the weird part is, of course she's awful. Of course she doesn't belong in the ticket. She's a drag to the ticket. But how does it play removing a Black woman from the ticket? I mean, you got to get rid of
her as the VP and bringing Gavin Newsom on at the head, right?
Well, you have to sync them both. Like Biden and Kamala have to go down together is the only way it's going to work.
So for a while they were saying that a possible escape route would be to nominate her as a Supreme Court justice, which is, sort of hilarious. But I guess if, half those jokers can be there, Amy Coney Barrett and Clarence Thomas, why not Kamala Harris? But I don't know how they're going to save face in this, but they are desperately trying to do something. On the other side, we have Peter Dow, your former doppelganger, joining as the chief of staff or campaign strategist for Dr. Cornel West.
Campaign manager. I think the top slot.
Yes, yeah, campaign manager. What are your feelings on that?
Okay, well, whether he's the best pick or not is kind of irrelevant to me. I mean, we could argue about that. But at the end of the day, Cornel West picked him. Jill Stein recommended him.
Right.
People in the political world understand, including Bree, who worked on Bernie's campaign, that running a campaign requires some actual skill sets that isn't just like we found a good person.
Right.
We have somebody who's done this stuff. Now, granted, he's never been part of a winning campaign.
But I mean, who has, right? Like, there's only a few winning campaigns.
Yes, but he knows the mechanization. I don't know. Somebody help me out.
Machinations. Yeah.
Machination of running a national political presidential campaign. And that's crucial. Now, if you want to argue about whether you should trust him at this point, that's fair fodder, but like the idea that Cornel West picked him as a sellout because it's going to be a sheepdog to Democrats. Look, trust him or not, he's not. Dow did not play the long game to end up Cornel West's campaign.
You never know. That could be the whole conspiracy right there.
You don't shred the party that you worked for as much as he did.
I agree. For
that long a period, it's not a net benefit to Democrats.
Right.
Exactly. Dow's transformation,
I don't know if you saw that his did you know that Molly Jong Fast, is that her name? She's some like big, they were cousins, and she was like, I unfollowed him and whatever, who cares? But like, it's just so funny that the other thing is, how many people with national campaign knowledge would go to a third party? Like, they're not going to do that if they're in the Democratic Party. They're just not. So,
and that's ultimately the point, is that who would you pick? So if you're going to criticize him, who do you want to do this? Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And I mean, I do think that I believe his transformation, which is just my gut. So who cares? But yeah, I think to make that the reason to stop supporting Cornel West, then you're really looking for like any excuse to blow it up. I think it just does not feel genuine. Like, and also let's just wait to see, like, when he makes bad decisions. Like, I think Cornel West does need to start getting out there and doing rallies. I saw that he was with some climate rallies. He's been on millions of strike lines. But I'd love to see him really getting out there and honing his message a lot. But
so look, I know I'm just one person and you should make your own decision on this stuff, but I literally, for 3 or 4 or 5 years, I have no idea, because I blocked out that entire period of my life because it's depressing, but I parodied him every day, read his every tweet, watched everything he ever did, literally wrote a book about him, and I let it go when he started making the transformation. Now, does that mean I believed him? Does that mean I thought he should ever be on the left in politics as a leader, as a propagandist? No.
Right.
But the reason I dropped attacking him is because what am I doing all this for? Am I doing this because I want to sell books? No, I was doing it to make a point. I was parodying
Right.
him to make a point. So
Right.
these people that attack Cornel West over that decision,
Right.
not, judge the decision all you want, but
Right.
if you're going to attack West's credibility
Right.
and authenticity and character over that decision,
Right. While welcoming
What
the
do
Boogaloo Boys onto your shows.
I just want to know what you're doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you're going to say
Yeah.
we should work with,
libertarians, the Mises Caucus, Boogaloo Boys, because they say they've changed. Give me a break. Yeah.
yeah, they can
Ridiculous.
change, but this guy who's got the experience in the position you need
Right.
can't change. And look, if you don't want to think he changed, fine. But
Yeah.
that's different from saying I'm not going to support West or the Green Party because of a campaign position.
Yeah.
Which is absurd.
What about do we care what Cenk Uygur thinks about third-party candidates? Is that worth the conversation? Basically, they're all just saying, they're all coming around, because right now I think that in a general, Biden versus Trump, it's like a 3-point difference where Biden loses, or 2 points. When they factor in West, he loses by 5 points. So either way he loses, but that's the, that's all the fodder that people who don't want you ever, it's the time isn't now. And we showed that clip, 40 years of being told this is the most important election and we need to vote out fascism. And, Biden had 2 years. He had 2 years coming in on a mandate, knowing that Bernie had enormous popularity and a lot of people switched over to Biden when it became Biden versus Trump to vote for him. But the socialist guy was the popular candidate and he pretended to adopt all these policies. He reneged on every single one of them and allowed, Roe v. Roe not to get codified, didn't ignore the parliamentarian to up the minimum wage, didn't cancel student debt, of course, didn't give us all free healthcare, like all these things, while also slowly stripping away all of the protections and benefits that had come under the Trump administration because of COVID, which again is why he's losing by 10 points to a game show host, racist moron who mishandled COVID so abysmally.
Can you imagine?
He had 2 years to get rid of fascism and to fight it hard, and he didn't. So now they're saying, we need 60 people in the Senate. Biden can't do anything until we have 60. We know he's not going to get 60 people. So what's the reason now to vote for him?
What is? And I mean, when you look at COVID itself, that's what got him over the top. He won because of COVID, right? Trump was fucking awful on COVID. And here we are 3 years later, and people think Trump will handle crisis better than Joe Biden.
I mean,
and like you said, the conditions and the math it's not going to change after the election, even if Joe Biden were to win. And so everything that Republicans wanted to see happen managed to happen with the Democratic president, and those numbers aren't changing. So how does that give people the motivation to vote for him? It doesn't. Me, since COVID is my top issue, since we're literally in a fucking pandemic still.
It's over, dude. It's over.
I look at Trump and I say, well, at least the president, at least the press reported on him responsibly. They weren't these blatant propagandists just covering up and going along with the narrative. So maybe we'd have more pushback if that asshole was in charge.
Yep. I mean, think of all the things that rose up under Trump, which, people always accuse people on the left of wanting to burn it all down while not taking into account, Biden literally giving more permits to fracking or, fossil fuel drilling and killing more people with COVID than Trump. But at least you're right. The press was antagonistic, which is what they should always be. And now they've everything that liberals pretended to care about under Trump, Biden has doubled down on. He's made worse, and there is no pushback. So deportations, kids in cages, COVID, the economy, money to cops, money for war, World War III, like all of it is worse. And there's just no pushback.
And the reality is that the saving grace, which may save Democrats, is abortion, and
yeah,
if you look at it, obviously abortion was overturned during this feckless president's term against their promises to codify it and protect it. But still, that's going to get some people out. The Supreme Court is going to get some people out. It's just that elections are won with voter enthusiasm of your own base and how the independents flip. And enthusiasm on the left is awful, as all polls show. And there's no sign of it getting better. The economy is tanking. COVID's back in another massive round. People are tiring on the Ukraine war. They're seeing terrible responses to the tragedies in Maui and all over the place. And so they're looking at our US dollars and obviously their own bank accounts. I mean, we're told the economy is great. Like, hey, if you're not giving Biden credit on the economy, that's on you because it's doing great. Well, when you can't feed your fucking family and you're like getting a raise under the cost of living increase, and inflation is through the roof, and you hear that the president is actively trying to cut inflation by getting more people unemployed, which is their strategy. It's really hard to justify another 4 years of this asshole.
Yeah. And they know, and Democrats know that. They know that this is a ripe time for people to vote third party. They know that Cornel West is a formidable opponent. And that's why we're hearing so much pushback on how, from Rob Reiner to Cenk Uygur to, everybody in between, how this, again, is a vote against fascism, and democracy is only voting for Joe Biden, even though 70% of his own party don't want him to run. And it certainly isn't voting for a third party. And if Democrats really cared, they wouldn't be suing to keep Greens off the ballot. They would be fighting for ranked choice voting, and then it wouldn't hurt them at all. And by the way, there's also PSL candidates, Party for Social and Socialism.
And whatever you want, right?
No. And I know my brain. I have their two names,
COVID
and I wrote
fog.
down. And it's total COVID fog. But like, I love what they're saying, and most people agree with the platform of Cornel West and the PSL candidates. So if Democrats want, that's the thing I just will never understand. Cenk Uygur could spend his platform screaming at Democrats to actually, and they're going to keep talking about Marianne Williamson, but could say, adopt the platform and the policies that most of this country wants. And instead of yelling at the people in power, he's always just going to yell at the most marginalized people. Always.
The framing is just like the union stuff. It's like, when the workers aren't paid enough, the media can frame it as blame the workers or blame the bosses for why the strike is going to affect everyone else in the world. Like, we're not going to have entertainment because of the strike in Hollywood. Whose fault is that?
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with the voters. You could blame the voters if you want, or you could say, you know what, it's up to the party to appeal to the voters. That's kind of how elections work, and you're not doing it. So maybe support policies that the public wants.
Yeah. But if you say they need to earn my vote, then all those good liberals, thank you, Doug. I appreciate that. Claudia de la Cruz and Karina Garcia, Party for Socialism and Liberation, thank you. Instead we're told to, stop taking your ball and going home. Meanwhile, the donors are allowed to do that, or the Mitt Romney Republicans, who Democrats are always chasing after, right? All of those, the Lincoln Project Republicans.
How many of these assholes
themselves trying to get?
How many of these assholes were refusing to vote for Bernie if he would run? And they're
knowing
just saying,
it was going to be between him and Trump.
It literally would have been him and Trump was the devil, and Hitler, literally. I mean, he's fucking awful, but they portrayed him as that, and they're like, well, but I'd still probably not vote for Bernie.
Couldn't pull the lever for Bernie. They would definitely rather lose to Trump than win with socialism or any broad, universal, popular policies. Okay, should we move on? That's a long time for something so wildly depressing. Is there anything else? I mean, we have so many videos, but I don't know. Is there anything there that we're really...
Nope. I think we should timeline cleanse it and move on.
Okay. Do you have one that you want to do?
Not you. I don't even know where they are. We had so many technical difficulties post show that
we did. Okay,
it's a mess.
This is one I love. Here we go.
If you were in a car driving down the road and the old man and a baby went in front of you and the baby was by itself crawling and the man was walking by himself, what would you hit? You can only pick one, Mommy.
The old man.
I don't know where this is going.
Hi.
He lived his life.
I would hit the brakes. You see? I was right,
Oh God, I'm terrible.
All right.
I love that one.
All right.
I'm gonna give the trolley problem. Yeah, go ahead.
That was wholesome as hell, which I'm normally entirely against, but with the accent, I'll accept that.
Okay, thank you.
That was
Did you want to add one that's not so wholesome?
I don't know. Did you? Well, here we go.
All right.
This is good.
This is in Portugal. A winery. Their vats of red wine bursted. It was like 200 gallons. I'm gonna get that number wrong, but that's just red wine flowing through the streets.
You know what? This is a foul on our part. This should be our one. Good thing.
You're right. That's the one good thing. Slip that up.
Something good happened.
I wonder which diseases you could catch from licking the road.
Amazing. Question is, would you get your jugs of pork and fill them up with wine, or is it problematic?
I think it's a great idea, like in a cartoon. Yeah, I don't think you drink that. That's like flood water that you never want to go near. That's a good idea. It's a fun idea. All right. What do you think? Do we go to the
Let's go back to the wheel. Let's see what we got.
All right.
We haven't had a shot yet.
Yeah, baby.
43 minutes.
Yeah,
time cleanses here.
Yeah, it's just gonna be all timeline cleanse. All right, I'm gonna do this one. This reminded me of my own marriage.
Okay, Ben, you gave it to Tata?
Okay. All right, so now
don't hold it sideways so it's not going to hit against anything. You got it?
Yeah. Oh my God, don't laugh. I may fall in the water and then it's not going to be...
Where are we at?
Right.
There we are. Can I just tell you that my thesis for grad school as an industrial designer is a portable kayak, and I had to build something and take it out, and that was me on my own homemade portable kayak.
Oh, we need that. We gotta get that.
First try. Yeah. Not so good.
All
It's
right.
on video. I should probably, that would be
you got to bring that. You definitely have to bring that. Let's get that wheel going.
Back to our wheel. Is it?
Yeah, baby.
All right, we're in business.
Sorry, I'm just seeing my husband saying he'd hit the baby because it's more unexpected. That's comedy. That's comedy right there. That's going back to the trolley problem. Thanks for weighing in, honey. A shot. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Time for a shot. And then you deleted it, dude.
We got 3. We'll hit them.
All right. Cheers to 100 more, and thank you all for hanging out with us tonight.
100 more years of shows.
Yeah, 100 more.
Joke on that.
All right.
Yeah, baby.
So, okay, I think the whole Novid conversation is really interesting. And it a little bit also is like what you were talking about earlier with the brain damage part of it. And I saw people talking about like, who's Novid out there? I'm feeling all alone. And then a lot of people responded like, why are you trying to make yourselves feel better because you didn't get COVID and now you're trying to make other people who did, you're blaming them. And, you know, first of all, the only people to blame is a system that has conspired to make us all as easily infected as possible. Like that is really where you have to aim your ire, and where they have taken away all of the data. Nobody even talks about what's happening with COVID anymore on the news. We buried 1,534 people last week, and nobody knows about it. Nobody's wearing masks. You've got, what was it? 1584. 1,584 people died last week of COVID, and nobody talks about it in the US. Yeah, sorry, I'll put that back up here. I just wanted to make sure that was, yeah. So this came out 2-3 days ago, and you know they're always a week behind. So that was the week leading up to this, to the 17th.
Which brings up, I mean, you know, obviously everybody understands this, but the death ticker was a key part of the news every night, literally until Biden won the presidency and they dropped it.
The second he became president,
I mean,
it didn't matter anymore.
We were at a point where it was down to like 600 or so, you know, which was a low, but like, again, even focusing on the death ticker distracts from the fact that COVID is not just the acute phase of the disease where you die immediately or you don't. Like that's all they want to focus on.
Yeah.
But even by that metric, we're in shitty territory here with it.
I mean, this is
15
crazy
plus.
town. Yeah. And that's with only 30 states reporting. So then there's no, you know, Johns Hopkins stopped, the CDC stopped. So that's people having to gather it by pulling records. There is no, like, they have taken away all of the information that they said, hey, listen, just watch the information and then we'll bring back masks when there's spikes, which of course they're never going to do. Mask mandates. JD Vance a couple weeks ago was trying to pass a bill that said federal mask mandates. He wanted to abolish them and make them illegal. They're starting to bring them back in some hospitals. You know, I feel like the only thing, and we're seeing it in other countries, I think in Vilnius now, you're allowed to sue if you have hospital-acquired COVID. In Australia, I think they're doing that. In New Zealand. Yeah. I mean, I think that will be the only thing that might finally turn this around, is if there's some liability. But they try, you know, that was part of saying that part of the reason that they don't talk about COVID being airborne was so that hospitals would not be liable.
Absolutely. And I just shared a tweet earlier about, I think it was 2 Harvard professors. I don't know. I could be making that up, but they're elite school, Ivy Leaguers. But they're legal scholars who said, you know what? Hospitals can probably be found liable for this stuff. So look, that might have something to do with the correlation that we've got 4 or 5 states reissuing mandates for hospitals, which is the most absurd. Like, we've come to such an extreme that masks in hospitals, like they were masking before in the cancer wards, and now, I literally went to my friend who was in the cancer ward to visit, and none of the doctors had them on. The only time I saw a mask besides my own was a nurse when they came in the room, and kudos to them for that. They came in with the shitty fucking blue mask, whatever.
Which the CDC is also saying like that's just as good as N95s.
Yeah, in the new pre-published guidelines, like they have a draft, so we'll see what happens with it. But the new guidelines to hospitals, it says straight out, for practical purposes, regular mask is as good as an N95, which is just unfounded by all the facts.
Yeah.
And they base it on an opinion piece. Like they literally point to an opinion piece that is not medical science. This is our fucking CDC.
Which is why, you know, between that and that stupid Cochrane review that was really gross malpractice, which is every minimizer's go-to.
Let me see. Where's the
Cochrane stuff? So
yeah, the guy.
This is the first one, right? Review does not show that face masks don't work. And this is the retraction that I can't read unless I put on my but the review.
I can read it.
Yeah, you can. Okay.
Well, do you want me to read it? I mean, my reading skills.
I just put on my readers. Go ahead.
Go for it. Make it happen.
Okay. I'm going to read all of it. Many commentators have claimed that a recently updated Cochrane review shows that masks don't work, which is an inaccurate and misleading interpretation. So this is their own retraction in the Cochrane review. It would be accurate to say that the review examined whether interventions to promote mask wearing helped to slow the spread of respiratory viruses, and that the results were inconclusive. Given the limitations in the primary evidence, the review is not able to address the question of whether mask wearing itself reduces people's risk of contracting or spreading respiratory viruses, which is complete BS, because that is physics. It has nothing to do with anything but physics. If you're wearing an N95, it will prevent COVID molecules from coming through to you if it's well fit. That's just physics. The review authors are clear on the limitations in the abstract, the high risk of bias in the trials, variation in outcome measurement, and relatively low adherence with the interventions during the studies hampers drawing firm conclusions. I mean, basically what they're saying is, yeah, if people don't wear it all the time, which some of the studies that they pulled from, it was like teenagers who wore it for 6 hours at school, sort of, but they also, so not necessarily wearing it consistently, not wearing the proper mask. You know, that's like saying, do seatbelts really work? Because not everybody wears them.
Yeah, their own conclusions as written in the article lay out the argument that masks work if you really read through what they say.
Yep.
And so this is the one thing that's constantly pointed to by all the fucking idiots and all the people getting money from libertarian billionaires to pretend COVID doesn't exist.
Because of the Cochrane review, or COVID and masks aren't right. Yeah.
They still point to this to look, if you want to be antivirus, you want to pretend the vaccine kills everybody and everything is because of the vaccine. That's wrong. Fine. But like, you would still support a mask that we know by the laws of physics and the laws of science. And, you know, it just fucking works. So like to constantly point to this article and never accept any of the apologies like from the fucking author, the multiple articles
that are peer-reviewed studies prove that it works. Like you don't like, I thought this was a good, a good retort, right? A respirator is a device engineered by applied physics. A fit test uses physics to measure leakage. A respirator is, by definition, a COVID aerosol filtration device, as surely as a helicopter is, by definition, a flying machine. No randomized control trial validations are needed. Like you don't, like, again, it's like the seatbelt thing. Yeah, if people don't wear seatbelts properly, if you only wear it over your lap and not over your chest, if you don't always wear it, it's not going to work.
Imagine if when the seatbelt studies came out, people were like, well, but people don't wear the seatbelts, so let's throw out seatbelts.
Right.
That's what these people are.
Hey,
but that,
if you're,
well, no, but I mean, that's not even the whole argument, but that's just one piece of it. You know, wear it.
Right. Right. Yeah. And also, like, they're like, well, if the vaccines work, why do you need a mask? Well, I don't know. If the seatbelt works, why don't we let people drive drunk? Why do we have speed limits? Like, the seatbelts work. Like, why is this the one point where it's like it has to be absolutely foolproof?
These people on the right and on the fake left, or whatever you want to call it, the gullible left, the Jimmy Dore left, the funded by billionaires left. If you want to listen to their arguments, they take the lies by the government, which are valid lies. They're correct that the government lied to you that you could just vax and relax. And they're like, well, if the vaccine works, we don't need to wear masks. You know, they told us the vaccine works, so it's all lies.
Right.
You need to think beyond this polar, like the government is telling the truth or it's all a lie and COVID's fake and the whole world, 25 million deaths in the world is all fake, and all the science that kids are getting fucked up by this and are going to have diabetes and cancer early and all that shit is bullshit because the government lied to you. Think a little bit about why the government lied to you. The government lied to you about the efficacy of the vaccine so that they get you back to work like a fucking little worker bee that they want you to be.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, you know, and it's also, you know, it's the thing, I think, RFK Jr. and when Jimmy Dore had Cornel West on, and he was so, I thought, disgustingly improper with him, like showed so little respect. It was just heinous to watch him talk to him. He was like, why aren't you going to talk about lockdowns and you want to talk about, you know, Black people and trans rights? Well, then why don't you talk about how 40% of Black owned businesses went under? You know, and it always comes to that. When that's something you can talk about, the government's response and how they didn't help us through the pandemic and the lockdowns the way other countries did, right? Like a lot of us were talking about we needed $2,000 a month and everyone stay home the way they were doing in Europe, the way they were doing in Asia. They were paying people at least a certain percentage of their salaries and doing a true lockdown.
I remember a certain vice president that we can't stand even supported that position.
She did when Bernie was going to be it because they knew that's what we should be doing, you know. But if you want to talk about the impact on different communities, 2-year study finds Black children with COVID had twice as many deaths as white children with the virus. And it's among every single marginalized community. When you adjust for age, the rates were 10% higher for Latino people, 25% higher for Black and Pacifica people, and 55% higher for American Indian, Alaskan natives. So, I mean, they're like, they can't have it every which way. Like, if you want to talk about the truly devastating effects of this virus, they're wildly more devastating for marginalized groups in this country. And if you are on the left, you should be talking about working class, poor people, people of color. Those people are the ones who are suffering way worse than the libs and the, you know, Romney Republicans.
Absolutely. And COVID should have been leveraged by the left to fight for every fucking policy we want we want. I mean, it affects healthcare, obviously, which this inequality in healthcare affects marginalized communities way more, as you just showed.
I mean, vaccine rates. They always talk about red states. It's actually people who don't have healthcare, who don't have health insurance, who were way less vaccinated because they didn't have places to go because we, you know, did it through pharmacies instead of going through people's doctors. I mean,
and we're back to where, you know, the latest round of vaccines isn't even funded really. It's sort of half-ass funded, and we have nothing but problems. Vaccine uptake is going to be ridiculously low this round.
Right. For
because there's no communication from the government that there's a risk for one.
Right.
And the void of communication makes people lean into the conspiracy shit on the right that the vaccine is causing all these problems because there's no communication. There's no honesty about
long COVID,
the situation.
Right. Yeah, exactly. If you're only talking about the severe acute initial response to having COVID and not talking about the longer repercussions, then all that matters is, well, are people dying and are they vaccinated or however you want to do it? And by the way, people, yes, still are dying, but there's not way worse. There are other repercussions to getting COVID, and you could have an asymptomatic case and still die suddenly a year later because you have problems with your heart or you have strokes or, you know, but they won't talk about any of that because they just want everybody back to work. And every time you bring that up with one of the anti-maskers or minimizers who are anti-big pharma, you know, the worst thing for big pharma would be if everybody used a cheap N95 mask that is variant proof. And they don't want to talk about that. All right.
Yeah, and
yeah.
the problem ultimately with all these people on the fake left or whatever the fuck you want to call them,
Yeah.
pushing these narratives that the vaccines cause all these problems is it allows them to ignore long COVID because they think they bought into this bullshit fake climate change right-wing kind of narrative
Yep.
that it's all from the vax. It's the vax is the problem.
Yeah.
The vax.
Yeah.
You know, so there's no long COVID. It's people dying from the vax. It's
Right.
oh, you got the vax, you're going to get diabetes and cancer and all this
Right.
shit.
Yeah.
And the math does not show that at all. The science does not show that at all.
Right. But there's, yeah, exactly. There's not, and then you have somebody like Biden who gets COVID and then jokes about not wearing a mask the next time he shows up to a public event. They tell me I have to wear a mask, but don't tell them I'm not wearing. Like, that's the guy who's 10 points behind Trump on how he's going to deal with a national crisis. Yeah. All right. I think, what do you think? Are we moving on? Is there something else we want to show?
Fuck it.
All right.
Since we're getting into the rant on some of these people, maybe we should hit them on the wheel.
Yeah, baby.
Or show some time.
There we go.
What do you have that's not wholesome?
That's not wholesome. Okay, give me a second. Give me a second. What were we just doing? COVID. This isn't exactly a timeline cleanse, but I'm gonna play this.
Fauci came on TV yesterday. Hit the mic to say surge is on its way. Raised his eyebrow, said it's okay. Brave the spread with no apology. He says, hey babe, you can fall by the wayside. He said, unlucky. If you're sick, you might mildly die. And the virus goes doo be doo be doo doo be doo doo be doo be doo doo be doo doo. Something.
Ooh. So that
was that a timeline cleanse? Not really. Sorry.
We need a cleanse from the cleanse, but I mean, the thing there is, we weren't here for. Was that 2 weeks ago? The fall by the wayside.
No, we did a whole episode titled "Fall by the Way." That was you and me.
Oh,
that's us. Maybe. You remember that?
Don't question me. Don't challenge me.
We just didn't get to that.
Never happened. That never happened.
I know. Yeah, you're gonna blame everything on brain fog now. You wouldn't be wrong.
So fall by the wayside was obviously Fauci's interview in a comment.
The old people and immunocompromised people, they're gonna die.
They're gonna fall by the wayside. That's okay.
That's a price. That's a price I'm willing to pay. Your death.
Yeah. And again, if the press would just have a conversation with any of these epidemiologists and scientists and doctors and politicians about actual fucking long COVID, this would change everything. Everything would change.
Yep.
If you would just have the press do their fucking jobs.
Yep. Not once. Only when Trump is in office will they pretend to try to do a job.
That's why we're spinning the wheel, right? Yeah. Or do we want a better timeline cleanse? Do we want a happy time? Do we have something happy?
Okay.
Do we have a world timeline cleanse?
Here. That's me playing pool.
Was that you playing?
No, not really, but it kind of feels like it.
Wait, show it again. I missed what this is all about.
Let's just get that purple ball out of the way for my other one. And there you go. It wasn't really me, but it actually reminded me of myself because, yeah, I don't know.
So this is, since we've been drinking, I'm going to tell a little about myself. Let me tell you a story.
Okay.
No.
Okay, tell me a story.
After I quit my job working for the Evil McEvil company, and I planned for it, and I saved up all this money because they were literally paying me to train the outsourced people my job was getting sent to. My employee's job was getting sent to.
Right.
Anyway, so I saved up for a year and went and lived in Berkeley for almost 2 years, surviving on internet poker, which, sorry, leftists, I did it. It was
okay.
And I would go, I'm good at pool. I'm very, very good.
Okay.
So I got free pool basically because I'd go down there and play people at the bar down the street. That was my life for 2 years.
Okay.
Internet poker and pool. I'm canceling.
Okay.
Sorry. Checking out. All right.
Wait, are
That's
you showing
it.
a video?
Of what?
Oh, that's just what you're saying? I thought that was a setup to a video. I'm waiting. I'm like, okay, bring it.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was just oversharing because of the pool. Because like,
No, I'm glad. Okay, good. I will not play pool against you. You should play with Josh. She's a good pool player also.
I will record myself playing pool and make this the most narcissistic show on earth.
Okay,
Just
good.
show me
I like
playing
it.
pool.
That and your kayak.
I won't do that. Let me tell you another thing on my show. It's 100 shows. I'm gonna get real.
Ask me anything. All right.
Where's the damn wheel?
Yeah, baby.
Listen, it is our 100th episode. I'm doing an audible before we get to Conspiracy Land. Just feels like we need a little bit of a different kind of cleanse. Yeah, you gotta jazz it up.
Did my story get us here?
It was really good story, Pat. It was great. It was
Let me tell you some more stories.
No, I liked it. I just thought it was going to come with video. I don't know why. My expectations are high. Cheers.
I would rather have a shot anyway.
Wait, conspiracy. Oh, conspiracy.
Oh, we have a topic.
We do. We have a topic. Okay, conspiracy land. So a few things happened this week. Wait, let's just get to the conspiracy part of what's happening here. Well, just to set it up, where we are right now, we have a country where 14% of Republicans trust mass media, 70% of Democrats do, and only 27% of independents, which I honestly, that is so frightening to me that Democrats have become the party that believes in corporate media and the FBI and the CIA and the Pentagon, and they are just all in, you know.
And let me tell you, so the saving grace that Democratic pundits keep putting out on TV is that something like 27% of voters are independents or haven't decided yet, and they're largely independents. And you can look at that. And so that shows you that the media's power to sway those people towards Democrats down the final stretch, it's not what it used to be. So they're going to be in a rough spot. Like if you just think, well, independents are going to have a rational thought at the end about abortion and vote for Democrats. Look at that. Look at those numbers, 14% and 24% or something of
17 and 27. Yeah.
Correct.
Whatever. Fake news. We're just fake news. We're just going to make shit up. You know, and I know we're going to get to the other stuff, but just like for the, you know, on COVID, the fact that, you know, that Cochrane study talks about masks not working and now they have retractions, but everybody brings that up. And even when Fauci was on the news like 2 weeks ago and they brought up that study, I mean, they're still talking about that study. And he was like, well, other studies say other things. That's not the response of like the head scientist in the country. He should have just shut that down right away. It's physics.
Yeah. He should have
N95 respirators, they will block COVID. That's it. That's the fact.
He should have said that. And then look, the authors even didn't draw the same conclusion these people on the right are drawing, or these people, these conclusions you hear about it are not the author himself denies what you're saying that study means.
Exactly. So, you know, you hear that, but of course, Fauci at the beginning said that masks didn't work, and then later says it was just because, you know, he didn't want there to be a run on masks. Well, that did a lot of damage. You know, you have the World Health Organization. I mean, there's a compiled video of the woman, Maria, I can't remember her name, saying COVID's not airborne, one after another, clip after clip, when they knew it was. You know, so when you have that, when you have our government not talking about long COVID and not talking about, you know, why people are dying suddenly, even after very, non-acute, because I can't think of the word,
benign infection,
or, you know, like asymptomatic or very, you know, light
mild or less
cases, mild. There we go. Mild. Then we have last week, Biden was delivered a speech in Maryland, and he said, oh my goodness, he basically made it sound like he said, I focused on unemployment. We're at record lows in unemployment, which, that's already an obfuscation of the true economic reality that most people are enduring right now. I focused on this my whole career. Why? Or at least not in the direction he's implying here, particularly for African Americans and Hispanic workers and veterans, workers without high school diplomas. That's what he said. Then they altered the transcript and added and workers without high school diplomas. So this is minor, but don't alter it. Because once you alter it, then people are like, wow. Because I don't know if you remember, but when Trump would say things and then the official White House transcript was altered to reflect something that might be more pleasing to posterity, he was called out on it by everybody. And now it's just the New York Post. So when that happens, in the absence of transparency and consistency, and when you know that there is a financial incentive, trust goes out the window. So that's what I'm going to say as we talk about the financial ties that some of our favorite podcasters are possibly being implicated.
Oh, are we going into that? Should we get into that? I think we should get into that.
Yeah, I mean,
but
I think
we should show a timeline cleanse.
Oh, okay.
To fill the gap, also known as Pat with the weakest bladder in
Oh, okay. You better pick a long one.
I mean, what do we got that's long? Because
my God. All right, I'll see if I can. All right, I'm going to find something. Just go.
What?
Wait a second. I know. Wait.
The
okay, we're going to do the paperback. He just left me. Okay, here's a little climate timeline cleanse.
Plastic bags, but I also know that's not going to fix the fucking problem. We're past that point. It's war now. All right? We don't have enough time to reduce, reuse, and recycle and sit in a corner quietly twiddling our thumbs. This is fucking full-on combat for the end of our society. If you want to fix the world with... You don't get rid of plastic bags. You want to fix the environment with plastic bags? Everyone in here should carry a fucking plastic bag with them. And if you happen to be lucky enough to be behind an oil executive in line at a coffee shop one day, you put it over his fucking head and you tighten it up until he realizes air matters, motherfucker! Problem solved. My name's Simon King. Thank you so much, guys. Have a great night.
I'm reading some of the comments. Yeah, I said do an audible instead of call an audible. Sorry. I did want to just say, because I got some people ask me, not in a mean way, but like, you're always so COVID conscious, and how did you get COVID? It's 100% my kid's fault. 100%.
My internet's back up.
Good. Look at that. I was just saying, because I see somebody said that they've been doing the nasal spray that I recommended. And I was just, selling my 17-year-old out for going to a party and not being as careful as he should have.
You were selling some like nasal vid.
Well, yeah. So somebody in the chat said that they were doing that nasal spray. And when Xander tested positive, it was 2 days before Josh and I tested positive. So we kept testing, but we in our we all started wearing masks in the house. We had our air filter, our HEPA air filter. We did the nasal spray. We did the CPC mouthwash. But obviously, I think we had been infected by Xander. I'm just going to totally sell him out before he wasn't feeling well and we tested.
Right.
I'm a little surprised that all of those things in combination weren't enough. I'm a little bummed by him, but we still just kept doing them all throughout. But anyway, I did sell him out. I'm glad that gave you enough time. The plastic bag over the head of the billionaires who are destroying our world. That was the timeline cleanse. All right.
Oh, now you showed that one?
I showed that one. Did you like it?
That's
yeah.
It was amazing.
All right. Why don't you want to start us off on the
Yeah, so the story for people who don't know, the quick version is that a Canadian billionaire, very libertarian, funded at least 3 verified.
Peter Allard, right?
Peter Allard funded at least 3 verified podcast groups. One, which Jimmy Dore, who Jimmy Dore admitted he was a supporter. What's his name? God damn it. Does a lot of
Aaron Mate.
Aaron Mate confirmed. He said he's also a supporter of his. And then Status Quo took money from them. They said that Status Quo received $50,000 and $55,000 a month from this guy. And the deal was, was it to push libertarian views? Initially, no, probably. Initially, no. It was perceived as, here's a guy with a lot of money funding stuff on the left. You can go read Jen Diaz's.
Diaz.
Diaz.
A few different. She shared a few different emails from Allard to her. Some of them pushing Uber, like, let's really get on the case in Canada. I guess
we need Uber here in Canada.
Yeah, there were too many restrictions because they were protecting taxi cab drivers. Fake pandemic, anti-vax ideas, anti-climate ideas, and that's when they bowed out. Status quo.
Right. Kudos
when they were
to
being
them
told what to actually produce.
For bowing out. Now they the claim was that they pulled the funding because that Allard pulled the funding initially, just to keep the record clear, pulled the money from Status Quo because of the allegations that were made against Justin Charlton that turned out to be not true. But then,
Wait, sorry. I was trying to look at comments. Did you say against Jordan Sheridan? Is that what you just said?
Yeah.
No. Okay. That people were making. Sorry, will you just go back, because you said Justin and I didn't know what you're talking about, and I know it was just because you have my brain fog. But will you just say what you're saying again? You did. Okay. So what happened?
So there were claims made against Jordan that turned out to be untrue. There was
the sexual stuff, like is that what you're talking about when he was on TYT?
I think it was something else, to be honest.
Okay.
It wasn't that stuff. But that's why they pulled the funding. But then anyway, they cut ties ultimately with this guy. And we know, $50,000 was sent their way because of Jimmy Dore, according to Jen. And so how much was Jimmy Dore taking? I mean, this guy's views are very libertarian. He's an anti-masker, anti-lockdown, anti-vax, trucker rally guy in Canada. Yeah. And the trucker rally seems to be the nexus of all this stuff, as does Jimmy Dore. We're talking about people in the Jimmy Dore orbit. And if you look, is that why they're not covering any of this stuff? Like, do his views align perfectly with this guy's? Do they always align, or is the money aligning?
It's really hard to know. And I think that's where transparency is in order. I think, if people want not to be accused of changing their points of view because of financial incentives, they owe it to people to say, why did I stop talking about COVID entirely in the middle of a global pandemic? I think, again, it's transparency and consistency, and this sort of trying to cultivate conspiracy theorists to all come together. I mean, the other common bond seems to be Julian Assange. And I'm, very much pro freeing Julian Assange, and I don't believe he ever should have been persecuted. It's disgusting that Biden has continued Trump's persecution of him. As we know, even, Obama, who I think used the, we're in the pocket of Big Booze. I wish we need an endorsement.
Big Booze.
Now there's much more of an outcry. People are finally getting in line and saying that Assange should be freed, even in the US. But that seems to be a real common denominator. And I actually, for people who are pro Assange, are for some reason also COVID minimizers. That just really, it was just such a strange coupling of two, I think, very different lanes, especially because, I found something where he appeared in court with a mask on. So Julian Assange isn't an idiot. He knows that COVID is real. So I just think, as with, go ahead.
The thing, it's hard to talk about the Assange folks because we support everything they stand for as far as Assange goes, and freedom of the press and prosecuting whistleblowers, and that he was framed on his sexual harassment stuff. I mean, I'm in with all that, but I think what happens is the Assange audience is catered, a lot of Assange folks are drawn to it because they're conspiracy minded already.
Right.
Which is not to say that the points aren't true, but so you've got this big conspiracy audience that is automatically in line with Assange. And then, so that connects them to this other stuff that everything is a conspiracy.
A big state conspiracy and big pharma.
Deep state.
Right. And listen, a lot of those are true. And again, the, Democrats or the government does themselves absolutely no favors by enshrining so much in secrecy. But that used to be a, liberal tenet, was free speech, free press, which, liberals now, they want to shut down anybody who has some heterodox opinion, right? Even, we see the lab leak now, the lab leak that the CIA apparently was trying to pay the analysts who were first supposed to come up with a report on the origins of COVID. They were trying to bribe them not to talk about a lab leak. Well, when you get, where is that? Did you take that away?
No.
Oh no, here it is. And again, this is being reported by the New York Post, and actually I will say it's also being reported by the Intercept. But CNN, MSNBC, I don't think they're talking about that there. And so the more that we decide that you cannot have freedom of speech and opinions, even if your opinion is wrong, but that you should be deplatformed for that, that is where all good conspiracies go to thrive. As soon as there is not transparency or consistency, right? So,
which is what got us into this COVID mess, and if they didn't come so hard at the people criticizing the vaccine only strategy, the vaccine itself, even though I disagree with them on the vaccine, but when you ban people for their views you disagree with, some of which ended up true, like the lab leak, like them trying to suppress their own findings on the lab leak, paying people to suppress them, urging them, emails. We got emails on this stuff.
Or the Hunter Biden laptop that was Russian disinformation, which was a total lie, right?
Right. So that opens up this area where someone, if they want to cultivate an audience of conspiracy, see Alex Jones, those people thrive because they get an audience that is eager for all this information of distrust, and
because they know mainstream media is lying to them about so much,
and they're validated constantly because the media does cover stuff up, but that doesn't make it true, is the point. But these people are manipulating their viewers with this stuff. They're only selecting certain studies, 1 out of 100, that says something that leans their way, that the author himself disagrees with, and they're using that to get their audience to go, yeah, that's right. I don't want to wear a mask or whatever. And so when you see this convergence of money towards these people, and these people like Jimmy Dore and others rightfully railed against TYT's infusion of money and how it changed their show. And they're not revealing that they're getting money from these people. I have a big fucking problem with that. And when your views align with that, and then next thing you know, you're on Tucker Carlson all the time. Next thing you know, you're saying we should work with Boogaloo Boys. Next thing you know, you're starting to share for the first time some stuff about climate change not being a big deal. So it's pulling his entire audience to the right. Now, is that his goal? I don't know. Is he doing it for money? I don't know.
Right.
But people should know he's got a fucking billionaire behind him, and we've been railing against billionaires.
Yeah, if you're going to
he has more than fucking anyone.
Yeah, about The Intercept and TYT, and listen, some of the examples that they use for both of those, I agree with. But you're right, the hypocrisy undermines everything. But it doesn't seem to wake up those supporters. So there's two things. One is Naomi Klein has a new book out, which I can't wait to read, called Doppelganger. And it's funny because she is often confused with the person that she is her doppelganger, who is Naomi Wolf, who used to be a sort of a feminist and has kind of done a hard right turn. Yeah. But, from what I've heard in her interviews, I haven't yet read the book, I know that Canadian trucker rally was a real big
turning point on the left.
Turning point for so many people. But that liberals, with a small L, really have to come back to being hard proponents of freedom of speech and freedom of the press and money out of politics and consistency on calling out people, even if they're on your side, right? Like, we've all just seen, and we can move on to this other part of conspiracy with Russell Brand, right? The allegations against him are years old, definitely going back at least a decade. And it's only now that he's just been demonetized on YouTube. I would not prosecute somebody on my gut feelings, but from everything I've read, from a woman going to the police the very next day to get a rape kit done in 2006, my feeling is that I would think he's probably guilty of quite a bit of what he's being accused of. And there is a contention that there is a reason that he started moving towards this conspiratorial lane in the last year, with the truckers, with working with people who are sort of known racist, but we can all get behind the economic, message, and really going towards highlighting conspiracies and a certain kind of sensationalism on his podcast, so that, and we saw it right away when he was accused, a lot of people said, don't you think it's interesting that he's being taken down now? No, I don't think it's interesting. I think it's completely what corporate media does. When they no longer find you useful, or when you're a thorn in their side, they're going to try and take you down. It's why, Bill Clinton, who is credibly accused of raping at least 3 women and sexually accosting several more, can still be, one of the paragons of the Democratic Party and speak at the DNC. And Biden, who has 8 credible accusations of sexual assault against him, including rape, they're just going to forget that. They're going to completely destroy Tara Reade, who herself has some difficult to come to terms with opinions. I mean, the lack of consistency amongst all of these people, it does make everything open to grand conspiracies, because you can't who do we trust? I don't know whom to trust anymore, right?
But this is where your values and critical thinking and not being a sheep on all sides of the issue come into play. Like, you don't have to jump in and defend him and assume this is some attack because he's a thorn in the side of the press and the corporate establishment. You don't have to assume that. Like, didn't we learn that you shouldn't do that? I mean, we were saying that about Tara Reade. We were saying that, about a lot of cases. And so, you could think for yourself, like, okay, he could have done all this stuff. Most likely he did. I'll be honest, from what I've seen.
Right.
The establishment might have gone after him because it's a good time to take down this guy who says shit they don't like. Okay, that could happen too. That seems kind of likely. But to jump to defend the guy on it, like that in itself, and there's more layers to this stuff. So YouTube deplatforming him, they're not actually
demonetizing.
No,
demonetizing.
Yeah, that's my point. That's my point. They're not actually deplatforming him. they're just taking away the money. So if you want to see what he has to say, it's right. It's like hotter than ever now. Like they're getting more views on that shit than ever. They just took away his money on it, which, you know, this is why I think I've never been a free speech absolutist, but at some point, you know, this guy should be able to say what he wants. These are just fucking opinions. Everyone should judge that he's a piece of shit if they want to, or think he's a great guy. But why does taking away the money from him on it before he's found guilty, like how are they allowed to do that? Like, don't we want some sort of public forum anymore? I mean, that is the point. And I understand if he was found guilty of something, pull it, don't allow him to speak. You know, that might be too far. This is a dirtbag, just like people in prison can't profit off of their crimes. Right. You know, we've accepted that kind of situation, but he hasn't been found guilty. He hasn't even been charged of anything. I mean, it's just a he's
allegations. Yeah.
And I would have more respect. But I would have more respect for them if they're like, you know, we can't condone. We know enough to say we don't want to condone what he's doing. We're pulling his stuff. That's different than saying, you go watch it all. It's hot right now. Yeah. But he's not going to make any money from it. We are.
Yeah. And I think they did a similar thing, right, with the Canadian truckers when people were trying to send money to them, and was it like GoFundMe
all the pathways,
took all the money? Yeah. Like it's a strange way of meting out consequences for people who have not been convicted of anything yet. So
and here we are where I totally disagree with the whole motivation behind the truckers rally. But do I want a world where people can't have that opinion, even if it's wrong, and we're going to stop that? Like, no.
And again, like,
it's dangerous.
Where does that end? Like, it doesn't end with George W. Bush, who lied us into war and killed 1 million Iraqis. It doesn't end with Obama, who started 5 new wars during his 2 tenures in office, right? That war crimes like blowing up hospitals and civilian weddings. So like, which crimes are worthy of being punished without a trial? Yeah.
Over and over again, these people making the decisions on what is wrong are very often wrong. I mean, on the COVID information, there's so many things. Like our show got blocked a bunch of times for valid, accurate, 100%
accurate
true
COVID information.
But they're like, that goes against what we're saying, which are lies. So they pulled us. And so, you know, if that can happen to us, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I think I am more of a free speech absolutist, but I certainly think the way this is happening isn't helping anybody's case. Again, the lack of consistency, the lack of transparency just serves
it fuels all of the worst people to believe the worst things possible. And someone profits off of those people, and maybe it's Dore, maybe it's Alex Jones, maybe it's Tucker Carlson, maybe it's Russell Brand, you know, who knows? But like, if your goal is to have everybody think alike and agree with the mainstream opinion, you're just pushing people to the edges because they're like, why can't I listen to my guy? Why are you pulling the money from him? Why? Like, this is ridiculous. And then as it gets borne out that some of these things are true, it only calcifies people in their position that you're propagandizing the public because you're stopping something that was true from being spread to people.
Just because it was inconvenient politically. Yeah. All right. What do you think? Should we spin it? Where are we?
We're spinning it.
We're spinning it.
I don't know. Do we have?
Yeah, baby.
Somewhere. I am so glad we have so many timeline cleanses. What do we got here? Are you doing it or am I?
No, it's on you. You got it.
Okay. All right. 1 second. What were we just talking about? Do we have anything that works there? We're going to do, this is a little joy.
She a bone crusher. That's why you like the dance floor, niggas don't rush her. I will fuck my God. I don't trust her. If you ain't
Come on, we need more dancing in our lives. I'm gonna have to show the Tom Holland umbrella video again one of these days. That's what I watch anytime I'm feeling down in the dumps.
Is that from The Notebook or something? I don't know.
The lip sync one to Rihanna's Umbrella. Really? I showed it on the show with you, Pat.
I might have had a bladder thing at the time.
Nice to meet you. All right, I'm going to show it next week. It's one of my all-time favorites. All right. I don't have it right now. All right, let's do it.
What do we got?
Yeah, baby.
There we go. Thank you. What kind of 100th episode celebration is it? Where this is only our third? In addition to the pre-gaming?
Pre-gaming is getting me through this. Thank God.
Yeah.
And my kitten is actually sleeping behind me in the bar, obviously.
Look at that. Cheers.
But earlier she came up and I misgendered her. Sorry, Kat. Bit me in the ankle. So good stuff.
Testify to that. He squealed.
I squealed like a little girl.
Sorry, okay. All right. Where are we?
We got something on the wheel still.
Yeah, baby.
That's a good one. That is a good one. And as usual, it was hard to pick just one this week.
Yeah, let's see who we got. We got a few options.
You want to start? Look at those graphics. Come on, give that guy a raise. Definitely. All right, let's just start off with that awful ghoul, the CEO. I know we all saw it, but just to get us in the mood for the worst.
We have three, so
this is number one.
Him.
I think the problem that we've had is that we have people decided they didn't really want to work so much anymore through COVID, and that has had a massive issue on productivity. Tradies have definitely pulled back on productivity. They have been paid a lot to do not too much in the last few years. And we need to see that change. We need to see unemployment rise. Unemployment has to jump 40, 50% in my view. We need to see pain in the economy. We need to remind people that they work for the employer, not the other way around. I mean, there's been a systematic change where employees feel the employer is extremely lucky to have them, as opposed to the other way around. So it's a dynamic that has to change. We've got to kill that attitude, and that has to come through hurting the economy, which is what the whole global, the world is trying to do. The governments around the world are trying to increase unemployment to get that to some sort of normality. And we're seeing it. I think every employer now is seeing it. I mean, there is definitely massive layoffs going off. People might not be talking about it, but people are definitely laying people off, and we're starting to see less arrogance in the employment market, and that has to continue because that will cascade across the cost balance.
I mean, so grotesque, so saying the quiet part out loud. When they talk about class warfare, it's always aimed at people on the left trying to engage in class warfare instead of talking about the 40 years where all the worst people in the world have conspired together to decrease employment, decrease wages, and steal our wages. That's the class warfare.
Yeah, I mean, this guy is clearly a scumbag, but I want to point out that I thank him wholly for his comments because they are what they are all thinking. And he calls out accurately that all the global markets are trying to harm employment. They want to put us back in our place and make us not so whiny about healthcare. And we're not talking about it much, but UAW workers with all these demands really want retirement money. And their parents who worked they were car workers forever, like them, they got retirements. Like these people, they could be 70 years old, but they don't have health care when they retire.
Right.
You know, I mean,
and their retirement funds were put like in the, you know, stock market instead of being guaranteed amounts. Also, they want a 40% increase because that's what the CEOs gave themselves. And they took a hit, you know, thanks Obama, but they took a hit when the auto industry was bailed out with absolutely nothing in place to protect them. Cost of living was taken away, increases, right? So like, they're just fighting for exactly what the people whom they make the profits for are getting. And the fact that we have,
well, their pay matches the pay of workers across the US, and that the CEO's pay goes up 40% and they're fighting to get 20. You know what I mean? Like, so it's just ridiculous. And workers are fighting back. So this guy says what they're all doing. They're trying to make, you know, they want an
Jerome Powell said it out loud. That's all he's done. Like, why do we still have Jerome Powell as the head of the Fed? That's Trump's guy. I thought we were fighting fascism with Biden. That's Trump's guy. And his whole objective is to raise unemployment and make people suffer.
That's the goal. That's literally the goal.
Like, that's the only way to bring down all of the wage theft and all of the price gouging. It's unbelievable.
Let's move on to our other dirt bags. But as always, I just want to put the asterisk here and we can judge it later. I think we should judge them all at the end because they all apologized. But here's another dirt bag, Bill Maher.
Real time is coming back. Unfortunately, sans writers or writing. It has been 5 months and it's time to bring people back to work. The writers have important issues that I sympathize with, even though 2 weeks ago he said that they were asking for too much. And hope they are addressed to their satisfaction. Meanwhile, he's a writer. Like, why is there this weird separation? But they are not the only people with issues, problems, and concerns. Despite some assistance from me, much of the staff is struggling mightily. He's a millionaire. He could probably help them out more. We all were hopeful this would come to an end after Labor Day, but that day is come and gone, and there still seems to be nothing happening. I love my writers. I am one of them, but I'm not prepared to lose an entire year and see so many below-the-line people suffer so much. Again, raise money for them or give them some of your runoff money. I will honor the spirit of the strike by not doing a monologue, desk piece, new rules, or editorial, the written pieces that I am so proud of on Real Time. And I'll say it up front to the audience, the show I will be doing without my writers will not be as good as our normal show, full stop. But the heart of the show is an off-the-cuff panel discussion that aims to cut through the bullshit and predictable partisanship, and that will continue. The show will not disappoint. Whatever. He's so gross. I mean, he's just so gross.
Look, he's not funny without his writers, and
here's the thing. He already has a show. Yeah.
Well, this whole show I'm making about me, but they stole some of my bits from the internet. So, you know, they are joke thieves. They take the stuff people are already joking about, and not just my jokes when I was doing the shit. Right. Just look at what's trending on Twitter, and they will find someone's tweet that was funny. But anyway, that goes back to the writers and him. But when you work for Bill Maher, are you going to do your full fucking job, or are you just going to phone it in? You're going to phone it in. Fuck that guy.
Who's ever going to work for that again? I mean, seriously, of course people will, because we're all so desperate, but like, what an asshole. And by the way, he has another show. Like, he has a podcast, right? That was when we saw him say that he thought that the writers were asking for too much, was with Jim Gaffigan. That was his podcast. So he already has that.
And that was the follow-up to him saying that the homeless problem is overrated and he doesn't see it. It's not real. Because he doesn't drive he doesn't go. He literally admitted when questioned by whoever the fuck it was.
Why would you look at the reality when you could just be in your little gated community?
Don't go by. They're like, have you been by? And they said someplace in Hollywood, and he said, I don't drive
Skid Row. Why would you go to Skid Row? By the way, it's not just Skid Row anyway, but yeah, that was ridiculous.
Everywhere.
Well, not to be outdone, here is Drew Barrymore, and I know this all happened a week ago. Somebody did talk about, because okay, so wait, there's like 8 different things I want to say. One is,
I'm muting myself.
Shut up. Oh, stop it. Now I feel bad. Get back on here.
No, I didn't. Okay. I didn't mean that to be an insult. I want to hear all 8.
I want you to chime in. But so she first said that she was going to go on with the show. Same kind of deal. Won't be as good, but she really has to. Important things as she works through COVID, and she's got things she's got to discuss, even though it'll be without her writers. And she's really sorry. So important. Meanwhile, she's been a union member since she was like 6. So then she does this apology, which is that we didn't pull the whole video, the clip, but in front of that wall. And it was like a week after Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis apologized for writing a glowing recommendation for rapist Danny Masterson. So somebody online said something about how all rich people, all billionaires or rich people must have like a poor wall or like a modest wall where they can, in front of which they can issue their apologies, which I thought was sort of funny.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, so this is her issuing an apology, but at this point in her apology, she still said, she's like, I hear you and I'm sorry, but she was still going to go through with this.
Yeah. The show must go on.
The show must go on. And I'm really sorry. But this was Molly Jong-Fast, the one who unfollowed her cousin, Peter Dow, for being the campaign manager of Cornel West. I hadn't realized before she announced that she was unfollowing him that they were cousins. The other thing I think is funny is that Bradley Whitford is up there, and great. Finally, he's saying, Drew Barrymore would like you to know that undermining union solidarity at the most crucial moment in Hollywood labor history makes her the victim. This has been like a super tough week for her. But meanwhile, he's all in for Biden, who crushed a railroad strike. So like, this only matters to him when it matters to him.
And this is where worst of the week gets complicated, because
there's so many.
He's out here reforming his image by attacking her, when really he would have been her if he had the power to, and held the power on some show. Like, that's what it comes down to.
100%. I mean, he's a West Wing guy. That's his whole deal. Obama West Wing.
Yeah.
Who, by the way, like everybody from Obama's cabinet is now out there trying to like get rid of the billionaire tax, right? Like Kadial's doing that. We've got people talking, like writing opinion pieces against the UAW. So, it's just interesting where people decide to come down, when it affects whom and who's getting piled on. Yeah. It's just interesting. The other thing that I think is really funny is every time now that any star comes out to a picket line and is hyped up because, they have their publicists doing that for them, it's like, look at that. The cast of Star Trek showing solidarity on the picket line. Like, what is that? Like, it's their strike. This is their picket line along with the rest of us. It's not like they're not deigning to show solidarity. The whole framing of it is just so
no, it is. It's framed like they're not in play and they're being gracious that they're supporting the little people. Believe me, these are the people that have the most money to gain by holding out on a strike, more than the little people even.
I mean, and yet, we are not going to have time to get into strike stuff really, but I'm really conflicted is the wrong word, because I'm probably not at all conflicted on the stand-up strikes. I just like interim agreements. I don't think that you should have targeted strikes. I think it starts to chip away at solidarity. We saw it happening in SAG, and they, again, when people are allowed to act on sets during a strike because, it's part of the interim agreement, it just shows that these companies could really pay, it breaks solidarity. It shows that whose scripts are they shooting? And because writers are on strike, you don't have writers on set doing their own rewrites the way every set any actor's ever been on. There have been the writers there. So like, and it feels, there was that
like
first
picking
clip.
Winners and losers too.
Yeah. It is absolutely anathema to what a strike and what a total work shutdown is supposed to be. Because if you are still making a product that the bosses can capitalize on, you're fighting against yourself. You're just like shooting your own self in the foot. It's not a strike.
And you want maximum leverage. And I understand the argument that the UAW people are trying to make, Sean Fain included, like that they will turn it up. So we'll see. Friday is the deadline for some vague seriousness in negotiations, or they go up a level.
The contracts were done. Like, why wasn't that when the contracts were first expired, right?
Right. But so, I mean, you're just weakening your own position by not making them pay enough now.
Yeah.
Like there's no pain, you know, there's a little pain, but like, why don't you hit them with hard pain quick and then see where that goes? Like that's what's all like allowing for some people to work through these things. It just hurts your cause. I just don't understand in the big picture. I don't know. That's not a sound argument, but
well, it does. It hurts your cause. They say it so that they don't deplete the strike fund. They could last 3 months with the strike, but like,
yeah. And some of the workers on strike may come back to work, and then you have a new crew come out. But so you're hitting them at like 5%. It's like everyone across the board is going to work a little bit less hard, or something. You know, is the effect of this? Like the supply chain is going to be damaged a little bit.
Yeah.
But real pain is like, holy shit, everyone's going to stop buying American cars. We're going to start buying, you know, like that makes these fucking people think.
Yeah, exactly. A shutdown, not a slow bleed out, which is really, again, the only people that really helps are the CEOs. Audrey just wrote that auto company stocks are up this week. So congratulations. You know, and it's such a bummer. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, so everything is stock value. So like that's how you measure the success.
That shows, right? Exactly.
Right there is like, well, until their stock comes down, do you think they're going to care about this? Because they're like, well, we'll just write it out. We can change public opinion. We'll put another $10 million into PR.
Yep.
We'll go on the news every night and say, look, and they're already doing this. They're already doing this. They put out talking points against everything Sean Fain said.
Right.
That, you know, the average worker makes $120,000 a year or something. But, you know, that doesn't factor in.
Like 40% raise. Wow. Well, look, the auto industry is coming with 20%. Like that's all the framing is like that now.
Yeah. But all those numbers are not challenged. They're not saying like, well, but yeah, that's because you're not including the part-time workers, which you now expanded all the part-time workforce.
Right.
You got rid of, no matter what they make a year, they don't get a pension anymore. So there's no pension. There's no health care after they quit. So that 120,000 or whatever is really like only 80 if you do the math on it. And you guys got a 40% raise and they suffered for fucking 10 years.
Yeah. 15. Yeah.
So make up for that. You know,
there was a really interesting bit where the night that the strike was announced, Sean Fain went on camera to read comments out loud and to talk about it. And there's a 30-second just dead air while he's looking through the comments, and he can't find a single positive comment because he's just announced it's going to be these stand-up strikes where they're not all shutting down. 97% of the workers said, we want to shut down, we want to strike. So now you're going against the will of the people with this thing that you've decided behind closed doors that actually helps the people you're fighting against and is a muddled message. And then he says, well, we can talk. And then he says, well, I do see there's quite a few comments here. We can talk about it. But then it hasn't been addressed. All that I've seen happen is people on the sort of liberal left are saying what a brilliant strategy it is because, you know, while they sort of seeded some misinformation. So the CEOs thought that certain plants would be shut down and that is going to cost them money. But as you said, that's not a complete shutdown that would absolutely cost them millions of dollars. You know, and so I see him talking and he talks a good game and he says the right things when he's talking about the billionaire class. And I appreciate that he at least is saying the right things. I appreciate that he has not endorsed Biden yet, but, you know, actions speak louder than words. And we'll see how this plays out.
Here's the problem. Here's a guy who is going against his own workers who don't want this strategy, right?
Right.
And this is where you need a worker backed. You need some checks on him. So here's this guy who's like the most left we've ever had, but he's actually going. So where's the solidarity with the workers on this one? But here's the problem. So he hasn't endorsed Biden yet. How much is his endorsement of Biden worth?
Right.
Will that affect the negotiations here?
Oh, yeah. I'm sure. I mean, listen, Biden's had his hand in this the whole time because a complete shutdown, and even, you know, one of Obama's old cabinet members just wrote a whole piece about how the UAW is asking for too much and this is going to hurt the election. And, you know, they've already been offered the 20%. Let's just go for that. So that's like the mainstream Democrats. Then the people who are on the, you know, left-ish, whatever, are saying that this is a brilliant strategy. And
you know how I know it's not a brilliant strategy? NPR was talking about how graduated or whatever you want to call these ramping up strategies of strikes are the best way to go. When you hear that on NPR, you know it's bullshit.
Exactly. Yeah. And when you go against the will, like it's supposed to be a democracy, well, it's not, but in these unions, and when these decisions are being made behind closed doors and just being handed over to people, or you know, just being handed down, like this is how we're doing it. That is not the way you cultivate solidarity in your workforce. And, you know, again, all of this feels like a microcosm of Democrats versus Republicans, where it's like, well, the CEOs are the worst. These are the people who are sort of fighting for us. Are you really going to talk badly against the people who are at least fighting for us a bit? Like, this isn't the time to have any criticism of Sean Fain. We're in the middle of a strike. This isn't a time to say anything bad about the nanny, what's her, Fran Drescher, because she's, you know, she gave her big speech on Versailles, right? So you don't ever, when's the good time?
Right. And so to that effect, NPR that I was listening to when they were saying this is the best strategy, of course, the only person they interviewed was the guy who's like, well, I don't agree with the strategy, but you know what? We'll wait and see. He could prove me wrong. You know, like it's just propaganda. It's just like getting people like that. So that, and this is the point of NPR a lot of times, is to sort of make you okay with whatever the Democrats are doing. Which is, so they're like, what's your objection? Let's play their objection and talk to a guy who understands that objection, but is okay with it. He's going to write it out.
Yeah. 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 And that's what's going to happen when Sean Fain finally does endorse Biden. People are going to be like, look, if he's endorsing Biden, he really is good for the left.
Yeah. Well, exactly. And what did he get? Did he fight hard down to the wire for his employees at the end when he endorses Biden? Or did he sort of stop a little bit early because Biden said, if you endorse me, I'll get you this, and we'll make sure this guy over here gets you a job and the CEO, or, you know.
Yeah. If you're making mid six figures and you're doing the boss's work for him, you're probably not exactly on the side of the workers.
Yeah. So anyway,
we've got a full 120 minutes. Hey, go ahead.
We went over our 100 hours.
We sure
minutes,
did.
100 minutes, 100 years. But we did have, we don't have a one good thing, but I think the one good thing, I'm going to make one up on the fly.
Okay.
All those people that were the worst of the week, they all apologized. Shame works. Bullying works online. We were able to turn public opinion against these people.
Yeah.
And they stand as examples of the wrong view, which they held. So don't quit hammering these idiots. Something good comes from it, even if it's just our outrage.
We absolutely need to bring back shame. Thank you for this very kind message. If only each of you all understood how much you are the continuing actualizations of an old Yippie's dream, you would understand why I love you all so much. That is a very, very sweet thing to say. Thank you, Tech. And bullying works. Keep up the shame. We love you guys. Here's to 100 more. Keep punching up.
Visible beer.
We'll see y'all next week.
Cheers. Much appreciated. Cheers. I love everybody for still staying in this fight. And we may not get wins, but we make a difference because how much worse would all of this be if we weren't out here bitching every day? So.
And drinking through it.
Drink through it. Cheers.
Drink through it. Cheers, everybody.